man. 9 seconds.
Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling about this most recent Arsenal news. We're going to be talking about Ornstein's bomb, talking about wanting Eze as well as Rodrygo. Kepa's been announced, so we'll get a temperature on how you guys are feeling about him, and then explaining the Noni Madueke interest. So yeah, but before we get started, I have Gabby on the phone. We were just talking about all this stuff. So she's going to tell you guys how she's feeling about stuff. And most importantly, if she's getting goosebumps. Gabby, are you getting goosebumps?
I'm getting goosebumps. We're almost getting there. We're getting things done.
Lies and
Signings are over the line. That's what's most important.
Lies and deception.
I don't want to hear about Nani. Don't tell me about Nani, but the rest of them, yeah, bring.
If you guys remember Gabby from the show that we did with Diluted, that was a really fun show. So if you'd like to see Gabby back on the show, let me know in the chat, DM me, let me know, because we're going to get her back on because we need to know how she's feeling truly about this transfer news. But Gabs, I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye. You guys, vote on the poll. Are you getting goosebumps? We need the goosebump meter. Like, that's what we need. Like, we need like a little meter where we can like, you know, say like whether or not like the goosebumps are here or not, you know. But I think there is a little bit more optimism these days just because there's more news. There's more news. There's good news. And yesterday we had spoken about Eze in the capacity of being like a versatile attacker and, you know, how he would be as a left wing. Now Ornstein has come out and kind of clarified things. So, and you guys have probably seen this. If you haven't, then I'll read it to you. But Ornstein has basically said about, you know, Arsenal's window that Arsenal are really interested in bringing in Eze, but as a third attacker. So Arsenal have put Eze high among the options to bolster the attack. No contact yet with Crystal Palace, and it's unclear of an exit, if it needs an exit, but is a serious candidate. Separate to a striker and a winger, Arsenal would look to pay below the release clause. Tottenham not pursuing for now. So, you know, it's just, I mean, listen, I went into this window saying that I really want two attackers at minimum, and a third attacker would be really, really good because we haven't touched the attack in so long. And so having three attackers come in is important. And we would basically be doing a massive surgery on the front line. And I think that that's exactly what's needed. Do we know exactly what attackers they're going to be or what positions they're going to play in? Not necessarily, because they have a list of Eze, Noni Madueke, and Rodgers as that third attacker, the versatile attacker, right? And then you have your winger target, which is Rodrygo, and then you have Sesko. But either way, you know, I'm at the point now where it's like, if the extra is somebody that's versatile more in midfield, or, you know, then you have somebody off of the right that's more versatile across the front. I'm sorry, but that's, I mean, we're talking about a complete restructuring really of our attack, and that is needed. 110%. That is needed down. So I'm excited. You know, I'm excited about knowing that Arsenal are looking at a third attacker. And I've been saying this since the beginning. It's when you look at our targets and you see that we're linked to, you know, Kudus and Bakayoko and Noni Madueke, and we're looking at Eze and, you know, these players and Rodgers, it just never really felt like we were truly just looking at two. It seemed like we were kind of trying to see if we could get a third. And maybe that's a little bit of Berta looking at us at the end of the season and saying, 2 is not enough. This group has like the picture where it's like this beautiful stallion all the way through. And then once you get up front, it's like a kid drawn picture of a horse. That's what we look like, So I just think that, this makes a lot of sense. Whether we get it done or not is still up in the air, but Ornstein doesn't really report things unless he knows a little bit of something. He's pretty quiet, so he didn't promise anything, but the Eze interest is very concrete. And so that makes me excited because I'm sorry, as every day goes by, I'm getting more and more invested. And I hate getting invested in things because I don't want to get let down, but I can already see it. I can already see Eze in the Arsenal kit. I can see Rodrygo in the Arsenal kit. I can see Sesko in the Arsenal kit. So it's a little bit more like, okay, now let's get the deals going and getting them done. So yeah. Shamari says, I don't want to hear complaints on the cheap defensive backups we've signed unless we sign no quality attackers. Clearly, they're saving big money for multiple attackers. The amount of memes that explain Arsenal is hilarious to me. Isak is still my dream. That I know will never happen. And Madueke and Arsenal kit right. We'll talk about Madueke in a little bit. Let's see. Keenan said his words were, Eze signing is independent of a winger and a striker. That means Eze is going to play left center mid. And we were talking about this yesterday. I actually don't have a problem with Eze playing left wing. And I also said that he's versatile, so he'll play left center mid and 10 and all that kind of stuff. But where he plays is the exact position in which we need to add more creativity. Because I know people are like, just replace Odegaard, but our right-hand side is not the problem. The left-hand side is dead. And no matter who you put there, whether it's Rice or Marino or Kai, it's just a dead zone, And so having the option to potentially have Eze and Odegaard or, you have options, and I know that this is kind of like a weird conversation because up until this point, we've had a pretty set starting 3 in midfield, whether it was Xhaka, Partey, and Odegaard or Rice, Partey, and Odegaard. But I just think those days are coming to an end where we're not going to have the flexibility. Does that not mean that I still feel like to a certain extent, Rice and Odegaard are probably going to be first names on the team sheet, but are there going to be games where you won't see Odegaard? Probably. Are there going to be games where you don't see Rice? Probably. Having somebody like Eze in the team at 27, Premier League proven, gives you the opportunity to do different things. And so I don't think it's a matter of replacing people or getting people out the team or, trying to, phase them out. I just think that Arsenal need to have different options and different ways of breaking teams down. And we don't have an option to become more creative and take a DM off. We haven't had that. Last season, we didn't have that. We could not bring a Fabio Vieira off the bench or Emil and, drop Declan into the 6 and just throw men forward. We didn't have that option. Marino doesn't make you more attacking, neither does Kai. And we know what Rice is good at. He's more of our like boombastic left center mid, box to box midfielder, but sometimes you need a little bit more flair and a little bit more close space technical ability. And so Eze is going to give you that. So I think having 4 top quality midfielders that can kind of plug and play and give you different options is the direction that Arsenal need to go in. And it's not necessarily about getting rid of people because people are so focused on, well, who's going to go out? Who's going to come out? Who's going to lose their spot? Good teams don't think about that. They don't think about, okay, well, that means that Eze is going to come in and then we're going to sell Odegaard next window. Probably not. If you looked at, I know City went out to Al Hilal yesterday, but my goodness, do they have a lot of options? They didn't bring Shirky on until the end. To the very end, they had Rodri and Reinders starting, or actually they had Gundogan starting, and I think Reinders, and then they brought in Rodri after that. Then they still brought on more attacking players and more options, and they're not talking about, okay, well, if you bring in Reinders, then does that mean Gundogan is going? Like, we just need more options, and of course, I still think that there'll be some players that, for the most part, are, kind of going to start most games. Your marquee signing and your captain are most likely, like logically, if we think logically without emotion, they're probably going to start most games. But you will have scenarios where you can start Eze, and that's a good option to have. There's also chances that like in other games where we want to rest Rice and Odegaard, you can play Eze and Ethan and then a 6. We start to mix and match a lot better with an Eze signing. And so I'm 100% down with this signing. But to me, he hits so many different points in terms of versatility, readiness, X factor. And this is just a side bonus, but it's going to make the players, not just the players, but the fans also excited and get off their feet. That first game against Leeds at home, I want to be there. Like, I'm thinking of going so I can see these players with my own 2 eyes, because I actually want to be excited, so it looks cool, Marlon says, I just looked at Eze's numbers and he is exactly what we need. Finally dealing with the low block BS. I think we can use both Odegaard and Eze in low block and mid block games. And that's something that we have to solve. We can't be going into next season. And let me know if you guys feel the same way in the chat. But aren't you tired of hearing about, oh, but somebody set up in a low block, so oh well, we couldn't break them down? We can't have that excuse next season, because if you think that people are gonna had low blocks last season, do you not think they're not gonna do it even more now that they've seen that it's stifled us so much? So we need to have a different option. And if we can go into games against low blocks and be able to bring Eze on, or even start Eze and play with just Declan in the 6, or, Zubi in the 6, you have so many different options there. And so I think it's about adding quality and adding creativity, not, taking one piece out and one for one. And then so this person is never going to play, and then this person is going to play instead of them. We're adding more into a group. And to me, that's more important. I think Eze is perfect for us. And if you can still add Rodrygo or another left wing on top of that, I mean, how good is that? How good is that? You will have solved the left-hand side. Like, that's crazy, So I'm hoping that Berta can, keep up the vibe that he's introducing me to, because this is exactly what we need. We need 3 attackers, and I think it will kind of maybe feel like a letdown if we don't get it now for a lot of people, but I like the idea that that's what we're going for. Eze plus left wing and striker is cold. We'll do another, lineup thing later as well, so we can see it, because sometimes seeing it with your eyes is a lot better, because Marino, to me, next season needs to be a just in case kind of player. I know that we just bought him and he's a good player and he played a good role for us, but I just feel if him and Trossard stay, which I know Marino's going to stay, but if the 2 of them end up staying, they kind of need to be a just in case. They're those last options in the squad, the third option in certain positions. I don't think Marino should not be our second option at left center mid. It should really be somebody that gives us quality, so if we want to get to that next level, again, like if you look at our contemporaries, the teams that we actually want to go up against, look at Liverpool, they have added Wirtz to an already really good midfield group. They have Soboslai. He's not my favorite, but they have Soboslai, they have McAllister, and they have Gravenberch. They have Endo as their backup number 6, and they're adding Wirtz to that group. Nobody at Liverpool is talking about, well, do we need to sell Soboslai? No, they're adding something to the group. And so don't we look a lot better if they have Wirtz, Soboslai, McAllister, and Gravenberch, and we have Zubamendi, Rice, Odegaard, and Eze? I just feel like now we're looking a lot more comparative to them, rather than, well, we're probably 1 or 2 short. Jerky looks like a baller. I have goosebumps. Kepa is going to be scary. I love that. Okay. Oh, okay. Makes sense now. Berta wants to build a formidable squad that can win the double. Might need that in my life. Eze would be a different profile of signing we haven't seen in a while. Interesting shift in strategy. I set myself a reminder for Real Madrid lineup later. I mean, he's not starting again, Rodrygo, so. Trey said, Eze is fire. He runs at defenders. He's fearless. What's interesting is, what's the plan for Kai? Him bulking and putting out muscle isn't for show, looking like Goretzka right now. Can I be honest, Trey? I don't care. I don't care what the plan is for Kai. I mean, it's just he's just not somebody that I'm particularly worried about or trying to figure out how to fit into the team. I just think he's going to get an ideal scenario for himself where the striker coming in is going to be a younger player, so he'll have he'll have the start, but I just don't think Sesko is the type of player that's going to come in and never get better. And at a certain stage, you'll just want the number 9 in there. And so, yeah, I think he's kind of on borrowed time here. If you bring in Eze and you have Rice, and then you have Odegaard and you have Ethan and Max Dowman coming through, and you can't play left wing or right wing, then your option, it's like, what's the plan for him? The plan for him is to start this season, and then we'll see from there. Just Ben Havertz next year, he'll have 2 years left on his deal. Havertz was breaking records in training. Jess doesn't like Kai. We already know this. I just don't have like this affinity and love affair with him that other people have. I don't see it. So, like, so yeah, I just don't have I'm not particularly worried about how he fits into the team. Let's see. Aha says, "Hey Jess, now that Kepa has signed, I have a stat for you. Since Arteta has joined December 2019, amount spent on goalkeepers 75 million, amount spent on forwards excluding Havertz, who became 175 million." I mean, we haven't spent money on attackers. Like, when I say like very like generalized statements like that, there's always somebody that comes out and they're like, "What do you mean? We bought, Jesus and Trossard. What do you mean we haven't bought forwards?" You know what the fuck I mean. We have not invested in the attack the way that we've invested other places, So basically, buying Jesus and Trossard to me is the equivalent of not buying anything, because we haven't seen Jesus and Trossard as a squatty, So we need 2 or 3 attackers that are going to change the way people see Arsenal's attack. Right now, they're not scared of our attack. They know that as long as you shut down Saka, it's pretty much okay, so they need to be actually fighting for their lives, and I just think if you have Rodrygo and you have Eze, they're fighting for their lives. You have Sesko, you're fighting for your lives. You're not fighting for your lives against Havertz and Martinelli. You're just not. Jesus, Trossard, Marquinhos, 75 million in total. Sterling William loans for free. Kai isn't clinical enough. He's not good enough for Arsenal. He's just not somebody that he just cannot be. When people are like, he's critical to our team and without him, we're missing so much. I'm just like, goodness. Okay. If you like it, I love it. Why do some Arsenal fans treat Kai like he's the best player on earth? I don't know, but like, if these are the players that we're bringing in, I'm just not really going to be that concerned about where he fits in. It's just not on my most important thing. I think that it's pretty much making his, a role in midfield almost untenable. Like, he won't be able to play midfield because we'll have too many options. You have Marino. If you bring in Eze, you have Eze, Marino, and Rice. You have Odegaard, Ethan, and Max Dowman coming down. Hold on real quick. I think you guys are doing something bad. Yes. Give me my shit. All right. And yes, he was doing something he wasn't supposed to. He was biting the edges of this box. But yeah, I'm just not worried about it. It's not my problem. Kai giving the wall pass to Martinelli and Nelly goes for the give and go lives rent free in my head. Spanish media now reporting, should Rodrygo leave Real Madrid, Liverpool are favorites to sign him as he wanted to have the best opportunity to continue winning Champions League. Well, if they come in and get him, what can we do? I don't know. We will have done all the legwork. And so if he goes to Liverpool, he goes to Liverpool. Like, He has choices. If Berta can pull off Eze, Rodrygo, and Sesko, he will get a 9 out of 10 rating for the summer transfer window. I don't think we're going to get Eze plus a winger. I think it's either or. But that's exactly like Ornstein has said that Eze is separate from the winger and the striker. Surely you go for Bakayoko over Noni. So yeah. Let's see. Nani is just not somebody that I feel like, we should be looking at all. I don't care if it's just, Chelsea tax and all that kind of stuff. I really don't care. I haven't seen it, so I'm sure that I would see it very easily, because if it was being reported by anybody kind of like more reliable, then we would be seeing it everywhere. But let's just see. I don't really want to freak out about it just yet. But also, Valencia are playing hardball and trying to offer what's his name a new contract. Fabrizio said not to worry about that either, but I think it's head games trying to scare us into giving them more money. So let's see. Plus Arsenal beat Madrid home and away last season. Rodrygo will be leaving for a better squad. Just how much would you say we should be getting in sales for Zinchenko, Vieira, Nelson, Lakanga, Hein? I feel like only if we get a decent amount, we can go big on 3 attackers. I mean, I don't know. Zinni is going to be very like 10 million, maybe. Vieira, we may not even be able to sell. It may be a loan. Nelson might be like 10 to 15 million. Lakanga, probably another loan. I don't see anybody buying him. And Hein, I have no idea. So we can't really be counting on sales, can we? We can't really be counting on sales. I would hope that this information wouldn't get leaked to Ornstein if we weren't kind of in a position where we could get these players without needing to sell that much, but we'll see. About 50 to 70, not for those players. Not for those players. Zinchenko, they were quoting about like 10 million for him, 10 to 12 million. Vieira probably won't even sell him. He's probably somebody you're going to have to loan again, but even if you do sell him, probably going to get like 20 million for him. Nelson, 10 million. Lakanga, are you going to be able to sell him for more than like 10 million? Like, I think you'll be lucky if you get 50. We're just not a great selling side. So they got Gakpo, so the report is crap. Arsenal are closer to UCL. I mean, the Spanish media are what they are. I mean, unless like an Ornstein or somebody says that they're going after him and they're going to get him, then I think we should steer clear of Spanish media, because we've seen how they like to twist stories and stuff. So are we going to afford to buy a left winger, striker, and Eze, and a backup to Saka, because Noni plays on the right, or is Eze or Madueke as a backup if we don't get him? I think the let's see. So it's left wing striker and then a versatile attacker. So Nani, Eze, and Rogers all fall into the versatile attacker bag. And then we have the left wing and the striker. So I think Nani is on the list for that. Is there a scenario where it ends up being Nani and Eze? I do think there's a scenario where that can happen, but I think it's unlikely, so yeah. I think Eze is major league competition for Odegaard. Arsenal won't get Nani. It's a smokescreen for Kudus if Rodrygo doesn't work out, I think. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't believe in smokescreens. I don't think we put out fake interest. I think we have genuine interest in players, but the interest is either greater or lower. I don't believe in smokescreens. I think fans have made up smokescreens as a way to cope with being linked to players that they don't like. So they're like, oh, well, he's just throwing out fake interest. No, I don't think he's throwing out fake interest. I don't think everybody and their mom has mentioned our interest in Nani, and it's just Berta just throwing shit out there. That feels very like unprofessional to me and messy. I just think that it depends on where the information is coming from. Is it coming from an agent or is it coming from the club? Like, where is it coming from? If it's coming from an agent, it could be light interest in Nani, and he's throwing that out there to, get more action for his player, more interest for his player, or it's coming from the club. So I don't really believe in smoke screens. I'll be honest with you. I think he's an option, and we need to be real about the fact that Arsenal are probably interested in Nani. Is it greater or less than Eze? That's more what it is. I don't believe in smoke screens. That is like a fan-made thing to cope with being linked to players that they don't want to be linked to. It's a smoke screen. Berta's not spending time throwing out fake, because you know why? If we were not interested in Nani at all, wouldn't Chelsea or, Nani's agent be able to clock that really quickly? Like, come on, like nobody's going to want fake interest and fake information about their player and who's interested in them just floating around the internet like, I don't believe that, so we are interested in Nani. Whether we're interested in him enough to make him a target where we actually pursue him with like a bid and all that kind of stuff, that's yet to be seen. But Bert has been talking about everybody and their mom. We know that. He's talking to Nani. He's spoken to Kudus. He's spoken to Lookman, Leao. Like, he's spoken to everyone. So, but Nani falls in that versatile attacker bucket, and so hopefully the one that we end up getting is Eze and not him. I really don't want to get like Rodrygo and Nani. I'd much prefer it be Rodrygo and Eze. I think most people would. So I'd rather have Martinelli as a right wing backup than Madueke. Jess, would you sell Martinelli and Ethan if the money allowed us to bring in Eze and Kudus? I'm not selling Ethan. No. I'm not selling Ethan. I don't want Kudus that bad. If you're offering, if we're actively right now, like the window is looking like Sesko, Rodrygo, and Eze, then I'm happy with that. I don't need Kudus at that stage. I'm like, I'm cool now. I'm not selling Ethan. No. Martinelli, I would sell, but Ethan? No. I think we're short-sighted on Ethan now. There's no way I would sell him right now at all. Let's see. If we get Eze, then Ethan will probably be the Saka backup, which I agree, Mr. I think they're kind of looking at scenarios with the squad, and they're like, okay, like you're saying, no Nani or no backup right wing means Ethan will play that position and be the backup for O. If you don't get Eze and you get Nani, then this scenario will happen and this will be different in this way, so they're plug and playing, I think, and they have several different scenarios. People use the word smokescreen as an excuse for not getting a player. It's like not even like an excuse for not getting a player. It's to have copium for a player that they're linked to that they don't want. This must be a smokescreen. This must be a smokescreen. I'm like, it's not a smokescreen. It's not a smokescreen. And as like the agents the agents are not going to just like say that Arsenal called Nani and they never have, but they can embellish. So like let's say we did exploratory talks with Leao and the conversation was very basic. Like, would you want to come? If you came, how much like playing time would you expect to get? What wages are you looking to get? They can take that call and say, oh, give it to a journalist and say Arsenal are interested in Leao, and they're doing talks and doing exploratory talks and blah blah blah, and embellish it a little bit like we're desperate, and then to try to draw interest from somewhere else. To me, that's how it works. Not let me pull it out of my ass, like out of nothing and just lie. Because most of the time I feel like people actually think journalists sit up there and lie about stuff, and it's actually against it's against the morality of their job to just make things up. Do they word it in certain ways and play on storylines and things like that? Like, if they know that we're not, nothing is that far along with Nani, but they know we're interested to a certain extent, so they push that forward and kind of play on that narrative to get Arsenal fans to click on it. That's how that works. But they don't just make shit up. They really don't. And I feel like some fans just can't come to the grips with sometimes you're just linked with players that you don't really like. It's just the truth. And also, if it's so funny because if we're linked to a player that we want, like when whoever that was said that we were interested in Julian Alvarez, people fucking ran with it. But when, we're linked to somebody else that you don't really like, then all of a sudden it's like, that guy's a fucking liar. He's a shit journalist, and it's like, good news, it's reliable. Bad news, he doesn't know anything and it's a smokescreen. I don't believe in smoke screens. It's the 1st of July, the financial year resets. So let's announce Zubimendi and finalize Sesko. Eze won more ground duels than any Arsenal player last season. I know that's why we want him. And Arteta's not going to get anybody that doesn't do the defensive side of the game. Now, do we want him, maybe our forwards not to do as much, of the tracking back and all that? Yes, but as a rule of thumb, Arteta is not going to bring in somebody that is a lazy cow. They're not going to do that. So what is that noise? They're not going to bring in somebody that's a lazy cow. So, Eze is not a lazy player. And I think we spoke about this the other day. I'm like, Eze is not lazy. He's not lazy at all. We're playing for Crystal Palace. You can't be lazy, especially if you're their talisman. You need to be working harder than anyone else. And he does do that. Like, does he have like the odd, like maybe attacker style tackle? Yes, that happens, but he's not lazy, by any stretch of the imagination. For me, a window thus far is a reflection of strengthening the squad. Kepa, Norgard, Mascara, and Eze. Yeah. Forrest want Malik Fofana. Oh my gosh, we're so dumb. Why don't we just go get him? What are we doing? The Nani thing is just gross. For fuck's sake. He said it, like he actually said it in his on Twitter. Oh, he's not going there. I don't think he'll go there. If he's waiting on Champions League sides, he'll do what Tim Weah just did. This has actually happened in Nottingham Forest quite a bit, and it's a little, I wouldn't say it's disappointing, but I would say as like a Nottingham Forest fan, I would be excited that my club is trying to be ambitious, but I would be a little bit disappointed that we can't get these deals over the line, because they were also had a deal in place for, at one point they had a deal in place club to club with PSV for Bakayoko, and they also had a deal in place club to club for Yusuf Fofana. These are Champions League level players that they had club to club deals for. They wanted to pay like 30 to 40 million for these players. And a lot of clubs could have used these players and they got rejected. Tim Weah also from Juventus rejected them the other day. So they're actually going for Champions League level players, but these players are not wanting to go to Nottingham Forest. And that's kind of like, for me, like that would be disappointing. If I was a Nottingham Forest fan, I'd be like, fuck, we're trying to like up the ante. Like they're not trying to just recruit players from lower level Premier League sides or whatever, like they've gotten like, Brazilian talents, like they got like three from one club, and now they're trying to go out and get like a Champions League level winger, and the guys are not wanting to go. Ethan should be the number 10. His should be number 10. His the future. Madueke is crap. Forresty to go the Brazilian route and get Botafogo players over the line. That's the way. Weah isn't even a good option for Forest. I actually clocked the other day. Fofana will end up being the generational bargain signing from Lyon, not Turkey. Yeah, it's wild. It's just wild, man. Very, very wild. But good for them, that they're trying to push for better players. I just don't think if he's waiting on Champions League clubs, he'll probably wait on Chelsea or wait for somebody else or, whatever. He's not gonna more teams will come in for him. And to be honest, like we should not be funding Chelsea's deal for Malik Fofana because essentially they'll use the Noni money to get somebody that we could have gotten. So why don't we just stick them with Noni and we go get Malik Fofana instead? That's a player that can play on both sides. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. Young, Belgian crown jewel. Why are we not going for him? Why are we giving them the money to go get him? It doesn't make no sense. So yeah, I don't mind signing Premier League players in their earlier years. However, I feel that we should be looking more outside of the league for attackers because we're having to overpay for okay players. Errol says, hi, Jess, just watched the Kepa interview. Arsenal, welcome to Arsenal for Kepa. So Kepa, his like announcement is done, and there's not really much to say about it because it's a backup goalkeeper. You guys know, I just think the conversation around backup goalkeepers is quite tiring when I'm pretty much a traditionalist when it comes to the goalkeeper situation. I don't want two battling number ones. I don't want, somebody really like wanting to play, I'm not really thirsty for that. It would have been nice to get Juan Garcia because he's super talented, but looking at what we're trying to do, spending 20 million on a goalkeeper just feels a little bit like is this what we're meant to be doing right now? So it just is what it is. Like, I don't really have much to say. I'm waiting on the Zubi announcement. That's what we're waiting on, but it's a backup goalkeeper, so I mean he said some cute stuff, and that, Arsenal was really competitive and like want to win and said all the things that you're supposed to say, but I just can't, you guys stop. I'm not looking at, you guys are trying to make me look and get like, oh my gosh, like nothing has happened. So yeah, you guys are trying to make me look and like look all stupid and shit like, oh my God, here we go for Jokeres. Like, no, come on. Let's see. Woke up and puked a little when I saw the Nani news. Lord, please have mercy on us. We don't deserve this. Marco, I swear to you that I was just sleeping and something woke me up out of my sleep. And I was like, shit is happening on the TL. I need to look. And I was like, my timeline was in disarray because you had the people that were excited about the Eze stuff and then total meltdown about the Nani stuff. And I'm just like, what? So we're getting attackers. That's what the fuck we know. Who we're getting, that's yet to be seen. But if I had my druthers and I had my, my pick of the litter, I would definitely get Sesko. I would definitely, be trying to get Rodrygo, saying, do you want to be Lucas Vasquez, baby? Or do you want to be Alexis Sanchez? Who do you want to be? Because this is slippery slope, baby. Before you know it, you're going to be Lucas Vasquez coming off of the bench every once in a while, until they set you off to pasture. Like, so yeah, I think that's what I would want. And then obviously Eze as well. Kepa is easily number one of the biggest flops of the Premier League era. Looking at Chelsea's goalkeepers before him, regardless, having a relatively experienced number two is a good thing. Hopefully his wages are modest. And listen, like, I think if you took the Chelsea of it all out of it and you looked at, you're getting Bournemouth's number one. Obviously, we did that before with Neto, but I don't think you'd be as disappointed. I just think it's about the constant going to their bin and grabbing up players it's the principle of it. And we spoke about this before. It's Arsenal are not really clued in on the way things look or the way it makes fans feel. They don't care to get deals done early because they don't care that how fans feel. They don't care if they're getting a bunch of Chelsea cast-offs because they don't care about those things. They're not worried about what it looks like or what fans want. And so they're going to go for what they think is the best player for them. And I kind of rate that, but you need to start winning shit. I think that's what it is, Let's see. Ryan says, Matt Loss said we want a left wing attacking midfielder and striker. And I think that makes sense. Left wing, Rodrygo's the main target, attacking midfielder as a striker. So let's really get it popping, hopefully Madueke has the ego and rejects speak. Let's talk about that. So our number one source of all things Arsenal, Hand of Arsenal, has spoken on it. So I think a lot of you guys will relax after reading this. And like I said earlier, I don't think that people make things up, but I think they understand what is going to get clicks. And they understand that if you say that Arsenal are going after a Chelsea player, the timeline is going to be in disarray because you're going to have Arsenal fans getting upset. You're going to have Chelsea fans bantering. So if you know that multiple clubs are invested in Noni and maybe Newcastle is the most invested, but Arsenal are interested, which one are you going to play up? You're going to play up Noni to Newcastle, or you're going to play up Noni to Arsenal? You're going to play up Noni to Arsenal. Because they're not really lying or saying that we're going to go get him or anything like that. They're just saying that there's interest. But every time that you say it, and then the more people that say it and, double down on it, the more real it feels like for Arsenal fans. And that's why I think they're panicking. But this is what Hand of Arsenal said. He said, the club have been speaking to his reps the past few weeks. The club hold genuine interest in Noni, but talks are not advanced on personal terms. No proposal made to the player either as of today. So Fabrizio said no terms or no proposal. Hand of Arsenal saying no proposal. Chelsea's side is saying that the club officials have denied any bid being made, so there's no bids or anything like that. And the player has expressed interest in our project, but has reservations about competing with Saka. Furthermore, the player is not keen on playing left wing either. In truth, the interest is genuine, but as of today, it's as you were. So he's just on our list. He's just on the list. Bloody bum, exactly, exaggerating our interest, doing the most. And it's like they put in an offer. We haven't put in an offer, but he's just exaggerating the talks, as it were. Because Arsenal fans, if there's one thing we're going to do is crash out off of getting a potential Chelsea player, so it's nothing. We don't have to necessarily worry about it right now. Now, if we start to get towards the end of the window and, now they're talking about advanced negotiations and shit, now we can really start crashing out. But it's just nothing, it really isn't. And on his side, he doesn't want to compete with Saka, and he doesn't want to play on the left. So those things in itself make it a non-starter because you are going to be competing with Saka. And the last thing you want to do in a World Cup year is to be having the person that's playing in front of you being the guy that you're trying to compete with for a position on your national team. It's reductive. Like, why would you do that? This is the same reason why I didn't really believe the Juan Garcia thing would happen anyway, because now he's fully in the picture for the Spanish national team. Raya is like the number 3 or the number 2 in there. And so who is Juan Garcia going to be whose spot is he going to try to take? Raya's. So why would he play behind him or fight with him with a spot? Like, no, so I don't think we have anything to worry about right now, when it comes to Nani. I think it's okay to get excited about Eze right now. Hopefully Rodrygo will decide to not be fucking Lucas Vasquez and will want to come to us. And then eventually Sesko will get over the line, but the Nani thing, I think people are like, even being linked to him is a disgrace. And I'm just like, Berta is not worried about what you think. He's doing, like Trey is saying, the due diligence. They're putting parameters in a computer and the data is spitting out a couple of names. And then they're going through those names and crossing out people that don't fit those parameters. And if they're looking for an attacker that can play on the left and the right, that is a certain age and has certain qualities, he's going to pop up on that list if he's available. And so they're just asking, what's T? And he said, you're cool, but I'm not trying to compete with Saka because I know I'm not going to win. And I don't want to play on the left either. Non-starter, Seriously, I think Abramovich left an Arsenal blackmail file to Bully. He's going to overdrive with it. This can't be real. Let me take a little sip of this. My coffee's kind of gross this morning, I can't lie. Could the delay in finalizing the striker be as a result of seeing which other players are securing first, left wing or 10, then deciding the best striker to complete the team? Honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with deciding which player is best for the team. I just think they want to wear RB Leipzig down. They don't want to pay more than their valuation. And Berta's not afraid. Berta's not afraid to do the waiting game because he knows he has like 2 or 3 weeks. So he's not worried about, if it's going to take 2 more weeks to get RB Leipzig down closer to their valuation, he's going to do that. He's not going to just give RB Leipzig what they want to hurry shit up, especially if it's going to impact our ability to get other things done. So I don't think they're actually choosing anymore, Burmy. I'll be honest. I think they've chosen. I think it's Sesko. So now it's just about wearing RB Leipzig down and making sure that we're not overpaying. Berta, the type of guy that goes nuts shopping with other people's money. Rodrygo Eze Zubi this summer could potentially prove to be the best window of the Emirates era. Serious moves made by a serious club. Have to see it to believe it. If we get Eze, Rodrygo, and Sesko, do you think all the haters in our fan base will consider this a good window, or will they find something else to shit on, like our 2 cheap signings at depth? Mike, be serious. There's never going to be a window that we can have that the Arteta outers are not going to say that, or High Standards FC, whatever you want to call them, are not going to say that it was a failed window, or they'll say it took too long, or, so-and-so's not as good because as soon as we're linked to Eze, he's not good enough. Or as soon as we're linked to Rodrygo, he's, a fake Brazilian. And, so there'll never be a window in which everybody agrees was a great window. There's always going to be something to bitch about, so they'll just find a reason, to be upset. Did RB not already drop the price? The only people that, said that was Build, so nobody has really confirmed that yet. So, but it's gone completely quiet. And I don't think that means that there's nothing happening. I just think they're locked in negotiations. And at some point, it'll just come out of nowhere that we've had a breakthrough and it's about to get done. I just think I actually prefer, once we're in negotiations, for it to go quiet. I don't actually like all of the, are they choosing between Gyökeres and Sesko? Remember, we haven't really had any of that in the last week or so. So it's done, so I'm loving it because I think it's going to get done, sooner rather than later. There is never going to be a good window without Arteta leaving. Win trophies, then the negativity will decrease. I agree with that. Exactly. Berta ain't simping. He wants the right price, not the inflated one. I like it's gone quiet. I don't like when it's quiet and we're not in negotiations. It's just quiet. Like at the very beginning of the window, it was like, okay, what are we doing? Like for the first like week or so, it was like very quiet. But once the negotiations have started, it's kind of like once I don't want all the noise. That to me is posturing. Now it's super quiet. So I'm like, okay, eventually that'll get done. Um, all the posturing and then like remember how the Declan Rice one was where there was never really a quiet moment. It was just constant there in the media pushing things, saying that we're cheap and all this shit. I really did not like that. I thought that that was like very doing way too much. This is fine. You know, there was like a period of time where with the timber deal, we were maybe like a couple million apart or something like that. And it just went quiet for like 2 weeks. We like knew we were in advanced negotiations and went quiet for like 2 weeks. And we're like, are we signing him? What's going on? And then all of a sudden it was like, it's done. So it's silence isn't always a bad thing. I think silence is bad when you're not in negotiations and you're like, what? Like last summer, we were never in negotiations, for any striker or any attacker at all. So it was just quiet on that front. We know we're talking to RB Leipzig for Sesko. So window just opened. I just want to get an announcement video out of nowhere. You'll never get that again, Zich. Like them days are gone where you don't even know we're in, negotiations and then boom, the player is signed. That's just a whole nother world. Like there's too much money to be made now with the transfer window. The transfer window is a whole business in itself, so it'll never go back to quiet, and then boom, we just signed someone. The best that we've gotten essentially was like Timber or Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira was out of nowhere. Timber was out of nowhere. But we still had to wait a little while for that because I think we did a similar thing where we waited until July to remember because we were working with Ajax to make sure that they could do their accounting on a different year. Like it was very similar to what happened with Sociedad. So, I just think that like we'll never get that again, like fully quiet. Fabrizio spoiling everything beforehand. It's never a surprise. Lynn says, hi, Jess. Hello to you as well. I've hardly watched Sesko. What makes him different to Havertz apart from ball striking? Just the fact that he's an actual striker. I think he's actually, in my opinion, he's better on the ball, which says a lot because he's not clumsy. Kai is very clumsy. And he has more physical presence. He's much faster. Sesko is actually really, really fast. Havertz is not. And he's just somebody that, like, you're looking at Havertz, like, he's just not a number 9. He's just not somebody that backs himself to score the goal in the big moment where Sesko does, so it's just a different vibe with him altogether. He has all the qualities that you would want in a top number 9, but he just needs consistency and more. He just needs more reps. You know how when you're inexperienced at something, you can be really talented, but need to hone the craft a little bit more. That's kind of where he is. He's very talented, but needs to hone the craft. So he needs direction and he also needs more time. But Havertz will just never be a true number 9. And Sesko just is. He's better at beating his man. Like it's actually weird to say that because Havertz is supposed to be like a number 10, but he's better at beating his man. He's just got all the things, and it's not just the ball striking, but the ball striking is also a big thing, is when you have little bobbly passes in the box and you just need somebody to take authority and just kick it in the back of the net. We don't really have that, so yeah, I would just watch some clips. Like he's not a bum like people are saying. I think they're being really disingenuous with that. I just think they want somebody that is going to bench Havertz right away, but him not being the finished article doesn't make him crap. He's actually really good. Rodrygo is the main jewel of this window. He is the main target and everything will connect from there. Rodrygo, Eze, Sesko, Zubi, and will win at least one trophy. Let's see. Window shuts in September, so there's a lot of time left for the dominoes to fall. And the reason why Sesko was the fastest player at last season's or last summer's Euros. Havertz was also at those Euros playing number 9 for Germany. So he's not faster than Sesko. Sesko is actually really, really fast. So even if you think Havertz is fast, which I don't know if I believe he's really fast or anything, but Sesko is faster. So, and he's kind of like better at all the striking things. So, um, but yeah, we'll never get that random announcement video again. Rodrygo, Sesko, Eze is amazing. What about backup for Saka? Anchor, I think at a certain stage, like I know we'd like to get absolutely everything, and this will obviously become something that people are like, yeah, but we didn't get a backup for Saka. But there at some stage, there has to be like almost like an acceptance that we've had a great window, but we still maybe have like one thing that we can do better. And most teams still have something that they could have in their team, even if they're really, really good. So, like, maybe PSG could still use a striker. Gonzalo, whatever his name is not the best. And, they had gotten rid of Kolo Muani. So, they could still bring in a striker, but that doesn't mean that they didn't have a really good team. That will probably be what ends up being the case for Arsenal, is that we have this idea that at some point we're just going to like complete the team 100% and there's not going to be anything. But there's not a single team that doesn't have like one thing where it's like we could have something there, but we don't. But we will have gotten the majority of things done. We would have gotten an attacking mid, a top level winger, and a striker. If we don't get a backup for Saka, it's not the end of the world. Ethan can play there. Saka will play most of the minutes. You know what I mean? In a pinch, Rodrygo could play there because we've seen him play there. So I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. But I know that there will be some people that are using that as like this window was shit. We didn't get somebody to back up Saka, but you got a bunch of other shit, so what else do you need? It's on Arteta simply not to force Saka to play 90 minutes all the time and to play injured and to play against a lower league opposition in the cups. I mean, Kilme is saying you have Ethan, you have Martinelli. I don't really like Martinelli on the right. I think it's terrible, but you have if Martinelli stays, you can play Rodrygo on the right or Martinelli on the left, or vice versa. You have other options that you can do, to not run his legs off. We already have Ethan as his backup, else we might lose a young talent. Newcastle want Jason Ito. Great, you can have at that. Like, oh no, like it's like have him. Nottingham Forest can have Edu, and Newcastle can have Ito. Like, I'm cool with that. But he says Ethan is Saka's backup. I think if you can't get an attacking mid, then maybe you would go and get a right wing, because we have been linked to right wing. So it's not that Arsenal don't see that as an opportunity to improve the squad. It's just if you have, the choice between bringing in Eze or bringing in, maybe a Noni or something like that, you'll probably go with Eze and leave the right wing alone. So, yeah. Please, Newcastle, pay us for Ito. I dare you to. Wanyeri will be backup for Saka. If we bring in Rodrygo, then Ethan won't have to deal with the double and triple teaming. I think Ethan is going to have like a second breakout season, if that makes sense. Like, I think we only got like a small amount of what he can do, and that small amount was good, so I'm loving that. I'm loving that, he's being considered in the squad, and he has all the opportunity to grow and get better, and I'm just not overlooking him. So I think some people have, and that's sad, because I'm like, there was a point in time where people were wanting him to start games, and now I feel like he's being shoved to the back, and I'm not quite sure why. He's so good. What happens to Pino, or whatever his name was? We were once linked to a random Spanish wingers. I think he's dusted, yo. I actually saw him, I think, for the Spanish national team not too long ago, but I think he's kind of like, how like your time comes and goes kind of thing. And you have like your little moment in the sun and then they forget about you. Spain have so much talent that I feel like he's somebody that, he's in and out of the squad. He's, still playing for Villarreal. Nobody's really talking about him like that. but he's only 22 still, but I remember we were linked to him. Right now, I just feel like players like Baena and, Alberto Malero are just a little bit more like on the uptick. But last season, he had 4 goals and 7 assists, but he also had 11 yellow cards. And I think that's probably one of he has a temper. He has a temper, and I think that's something that's maybe holding him back. But yeah. Let's see. I'm seeing this stuff about Xavi Simons as well. What do you guys think about Xavi Simons and the fact that he's being offered to Premier League sides, but nobody's really biting? And Newcastle won him, but he doesn't want to go there. What do you guys actually think about that? Because, Simons is somebody that I really like, but I'm surprised that he's being offered to people and people are not trying to take him. Mind you, Bayern have missed out on Wirtz. So why are they not getting him? It was also put in that article, I don't know if this is true or not, but they're saying his attitude might be putting people off. I don't know what that means specifically, but a player that's on the market for 70 million euros of his level and quality, I'm surprised that there's not more teams chomping at the bit. Now, City and Liverpool have already solved their issue, or they've already solved that. They bought attacking mid, so they don't need him. And then you go down, it's like it was Arsenal, Man United, Tottenham, and Newcastle. He doesn't want to go to the Northeast, so especially to play for probably Newcastle. I think if Liverpool were interested, he'd probably consider it. So it's really just Arsenal, Tottenham, and Man United, and Man United don't play in Champions League. So then it just leaves Tottenham and Arsenal, and we're going for Eze. Ending up at Tottenham is bruh, but hey, how much are they? I feel like it's 70 million for him right now. Newcastle getting rejected left and right and center. Market opportunity if Eze doesn't work. Eze, Simmons, Gyökeres, and we win the league. Newcastle getting rejected left, right, and center. Man, you have Cunha. I liked him when we were linked to him last season, but since watching him more, I find him to be quite inconsistent and a bit overrated. He's still talented, though. Let's go ahead and go through these super chats. Not enough. We need so much better and more. Shall we celebrate? We want a transfer trophy. Trophies give me goosebumps. Let's get real. Win trophies or get out goes for everyone at the club. Fair enough. Thank you so much for your super chats. I really appreciate it. And, if anybody has anything to add to that, then fair enough. It's nobody here is saying that a transfer is a trophy. So we kind of told you this yesterday that we get it, but that's not really the conversation we're having. We're not having an Arteta out conversation or get the protest going. So I don't know what to add on that because we spoke about it yesterday and we're talking about transfers. So I don't know what to say, but thank you for your super chats. Jagoon says 70 million is a bit much for someone they seem desperate to offload. He went for 50 million plus 30 in bonuses. Now he's being sold for 70 million. I know I have a different opinion, but still read the super chats. I read them in a certain section. So it wasn't that I wasn't reading them. It's just I read them in a certain section. But it's not about having a different opinion, H. It's just I don't know how to say this without sounding but it's kind of like a read the room situation. It's if we're not raging, we're being linked right now to a window of Sesko, Rodrygo, and Eze. It's really difficult to rage about that or to be negative about that. And you seem to be able to be negative no matter what. And it's just win trophies. But we're not playing games right now. We can't win games or win trophies right now. So it's the summertime. The sun is shining. We don't need to be, you know, raging right now. And if you don't think Rodrygo is enough with Sesko and Eze, that's fair, enough. But it's just a little bit like, what do you like? It's not about having a difference of opinion. A lot of people in this chat and in this community are not 100% behind the manager. A lot of people would want them out. But if you can see, it's like we're talking about the transfers. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I think Rodrygo shit just for the sake of it. I'm not going to pretend like that's going to be a bad window. So, because it's not. It'll be the best window that we've had in the Emirates era if we get it done. So, maybe Javi has disciplinary issues, not so much on the pitch, but behind the scenes. Give me a Aubameyang vibe. As soon as they say shit like that, I'm like, if you have one conversation with Mikel and it doesn't go right, it's over, So the fact that we're going with Eze and he's available and we're in a position where we could talk to RB Leipzig right now about Xavi Simons. It might just have been the case that we spoke to him and it just didn't go well, So maybe he wanted to be a guaranteed starter or, maybe he was, I don't know. I don't know what it is with him, but I found that to be a little bit surprising just considering the fact that it feels like almost every, top team is looking for an attack mid. And he's not on anybody's list essentially, so yeah, it's crazy. Anchor says, I would like Hato if Kivior leaves. Hato may join another Prem team this season. I think he will join Chelsea, if I'm honest. I just feel there's more opportunity for him to be a starter there. And, it's a World Cup year. So the last thing you want to be is a center back caught behind, Gabriel and, you have Calafiori. And then we've just given a big contract to MLS, so I just feel like it's hard to, convince somebody if they could go to Chelsea and maybe envision more playing time. Now, maybe he'll play left-sided center back for them, but Caldwell plays there, Cucurella. So yeah, but I have this just feeling in my gut that he's going to go Chelsea. Like, even if he's interested to come to us, I think he'll go to Chelsea because he sees maybe a clear path. I don't know. But, this is why I try not to get too invested in certain players because the chances of them ending up at a rival is quite high, so because we're all kind of looking at the same players. So he's a good player, but when you have MLS at home, it's really difficult to be like, upset if we don't get this player. I know that he's special and all that kind of stuff, but like we literally have MLS. Like I'm not that, worried about it. It's a World Cup year. Can you see this affecting player performances in the season? Others will not give everything on the pitch to avoid injuries to get the World Cup as healthy as they can. No, because we've been in a World Cup year where it was in December and I didn't see any of our players lacking fight or, they weren't holding back, so I think we have this idea that players will slow down, but they won't. I think players are even maybe a little bit like tunnel vision when they're playing the game that they're playing right then. They're not really thinking about the World Cup in a couple of months. Think about how well and how committed our team was ahead of the Winter World Cup, in Qatar. And there wasn't a single player that you could look at, not a Xhaka, not a Jesus, not a Martinelli, not a Saka, not a single one of these players was looking like they were holding back because of the World Cup. So I actually don't think so. I think they'll play. I think as a player, you kind of have to think like, if I'm meant to go to the World Cup, I will. So I don't need to hold back for my club team. They care about their nations. And of course, like there's more passion and like an ingrained love for their national team, but they love their club teams too, and they want to win. So I don't sense that they're going to hold back at all. I've been SAFC since we signed Vieira, and I'm so glad we are after him. Missed out on Bruno G because of that silly stuff. Chelsea should have the best squad in the world football after spending $2 billion, and yet they have a Europa League starting 11. I think you're talking about Bruno G stuff with like the attitude stuff, if that's what you're saying. I just feel like it matters to Mikel, and maybe it matters more than it should. But we've heard of meetings with Tony that haven't gone well. We've heard of, Bruno G. We didn't get a good sense on him. And then Xavi Simons is somebody that we could easily get, maybe, but we're not really going for him. But I'm not really going to be upset if we get Eze, to be honest. So, but I hear you. I definitely hear you. What's my dream summer? Dream summer is Rodrygo, Eze, Sesko, Zubi, Mascara, whatever we got. I mean, I could go super dream, but unrealistic. But I feel like, they'd be hitting all the points if they got Eze and Rodrygo and Sesko. I really like, I really, really like the being able to like get the left-hand side ticking, you know. I didn't see 90 million for Xavi Simons. I saw like 70 million. Like it was like 80 pound or 80 million euros or something, and it ended up being like 70 pounds or something like that. So we're all seeing different fees unless somebody more reliable says something different. But it's neither here nor there either, because it doesn't look like we're in for him, so it doesn't really matter anyways, does it? Do you know if Eze is injury prone? I'm not sure if I'm mixing up his injury record with Elise. Let's look at it. I'm sure he's had some injuries, because I think I've seen him like be like out for a certain amount of time and stuff like that. So let's check it out. Let's check it out. Not bad at fucking all. Get in. Like, I'm gonna have to look at injury records because we have so many fucking sick notes. But in 2020, like last season, he only missed 5 games through 1 foot injury and 1 hamstring injury. So he missed 5 games. And then the season prior, he missed 12, and the season prior, he missed 12. And then he didn't miss any in 2022. The 2021, 2022 season, he didn't miss any. And then the season before that, he missed 12. So last season, he missed 5, so that's not bad. Like a whole total of 5 games. So he's had like a foot injury, a hamstring injury, a muscle injury, an ankle injury, a hamstring injury, Achilles tendon problems, but that was like back in 2020, a knock and a groin injury that was in 2020 as well. So not bad at all. That's very positive. That's very positive. I wonder, okay, so I'm very I love the content. I'm sorry, but I'm the person that Arsenal have 100%, like when they say, oh, like people are like, oh, Arsenal fans love the content. Like they get brought in by the, like the media shit. Me. They're talking about me. And I was talking to Gabby about this before the show, but I was like, what I love that they're doing now is like the whole thing that they did with Declan, where they have like the inside the training and the person is just sitting in the little room and Arteta goes like, oh, I just want to welcome so-and-so to our family, da-da-da. And they stand up and say a little thing. I think they're going to do that with Zubi tomorrow. I think that's what they're going to do with Zubi because they start their preseason tomorrow. I think they're going to do that with Zubi. And you know what? I'm going to eat that shit up. Yes, I am, because I love the content. Absolutely. If he's going to be our versatile attacker, I don't mind him having some injuries because I don't think he'll be one of our key forwards. If Mikel is to leave and we are to replace him, who would you want us to get? Your choice. I mean, it's so hard to think of these things like now. Somebody put out a list of like Xavi Hernandez, like the best choice that if you could just pick anybody, you would probably go back and get Enrique, but he's not leaving PSG. But like, Xavi Hernandez, Iriolo is really good. You can go get Sesk, before Man City do, because Man City are looking for him to replace Pep. So they see something in him that they probably don't see in Mikel, because they could probably get Mikel. So yeah, I'm gonna probably go with like Sesk. I don't have like a thing against him, and he's obviously gonna be it's probably gonna be a really good coach. Watch out for the manager at Mainz. Edu is no longer there to be a tour guide. I personally love seeing the players greet win. Gunnarola said that team meeting announcement is so lame. I hate it. I fucking love it. Why do you hate it? Do you hate joy? Do you also hate Christmas? Are you Scrooge? Really? You hate it? It's so cool. I love it. Yes, we don't start preseason. We don't start preseason tomorrow. Charles Watt said it's a mistake, slip of the tongue. It starts next week. Oh, okay, next week. All right. So maybe we'll see it next week. But I'm ready. I'm ready. I can't wait. Guys, my timeline is like a mismatch of Arsenal nonsense, Club World Cup stuff, and Love Island. It's really crazy. Victor says, man's trying to be a contrarian. We love the team meetings. What was the team meeting for? It's like when they're about to start training and everybody like gets in the like little training area when they're about to watch film, and then they pan over to the new players and they're like, Arteta stands up there with his stiff ass like, I want to welcome so and so to our family. Do you want to say a couple of words? And then they stand up and they're all like super nervous and stuff. And then Ben White and so is in the corner like talking shit, and it's so funny looking at him like, it's so funny. Like, I just love it. Sorry, I love the content. Like, I'm here for it. I love the ABBA announcement was hyped, especially on short notice. I'll be there for when they show Zuby. Only reason I watch announcements is to see our facilities. They look nice. They do look nice. Our shit is nice. The cinema-like room, exactly. I just like how cozy the room seems. Especially at the beginning of preseason, because you have all the like everybody off of loan that comes back. Do you realize that Lukonga is going to start fucking preseason with us? Do you get how like insane that fucking is? Like Lukonga is going to be at preseason. You see all these people that you've never seen before, and then it slowly like dissipates. Yeah. Nomad says cringe as fuck. I'm not Scrooge. It's so dead when we wait so long and then all we get is welcome to the team. Even the new players kind of caught off guard. I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, this is just cute. Remember when they live streamed the Declan one? Like, I was like, hell yeah. Like they should do a live stream of training every once in a while so we can see it. Because I would watch it. Apart from the 100 million Rice deal, are we getting the best players we were told we would get after qualifying for Champions League? Seems like we're always looking for bargains. I mean, not necessarily. I feel if you're saying like the players that we've gotten done, Kepa's a backup goalkeeper. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to spend a big amount of money on a backup goalkeeper. Norgard, that's a contentious one for multiple reasons, but he's the backup DM. He's the third choice backup DM. Zubimendi is not a bargain. He is, it's a 60 million pound release clause that we're paying in installments, but that's not a bargain. That is to me, that's like a coup. Like everybody in Europe wanted him and we have him. Our number one option for left wing is Rodrygo. He's going to be expensive. Sesko is not a bargain in any stretch of the imagination, and neither is Eze. So I don't think we are looking for bargains, at all. I think last summer window was very, very, very disappointing and unprofessional. Like that was insane. But nothing about this window to me screams bargain. Now, Mascara is only really considered a bargain because I think a lot of people don't know who he is. But if he were to have went to PSG or Real Madrid, who were also linked to him, by the way, or Chelsea and been really good, and they had got him for the 20 million, we would be saying, why don't we do deals like that? So I think most windows are a mix of bigger signings like your Rices or your potentially your Rodrigos. Then you have more your cut price or like fillers like your Kepas or whatever. And then you have, your younger player that you get for a good fee, like a 20 million pound fee. Like there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like, we've gotten a backup goalkeeper and a backup DM, and we're linked to Mascara. And so it, because we haven't gotten any of the attackers over the line who are going to be big signings, it's like, well, we're just in a bin, like looking for cheap shit. And it's like, but this is supposed to be cheap shit. Like your backup goalkeeper is supposed to be cheap as fuck. When they said 5 million, I was like, bring. Like, I'm not into this expensive backup goalkeeper nonsense. Stupid. But I kind of understand why people think we're being cheap, but we're not, just no matter who we sign, as long as it's not a right wing or a striker, I'm not feeling great. Have you heard that Circus Mother play at the training? It's very American. It's a bit jarring being North Londoner. Circus Mother playing at training. No, I don't. I've never seen it or heard it. You need to like send it to me or whatever, like send me a clip of it or something, because I don't know. I don't, yeah. The music, the circus music at training. No, I haven't heard it. Is it in like one of the training videos? Because I don't be listening to the music. So yeah, you need to send me like a clip or something. Kepa takes us backwards. Be serious. A backup goalkeeper is not taking us backwards. Come on. Our fan base is very annoying at times on both sides. I feel like the super negative and the super positive are both incredibly annoying, because there's no way that it's like second place 3 years in a row, Champions League semifinalists. There's no way that that team is fucking terrible, and there's no way that that manager is awful. But you're also runners up 3 times over, and you didn't win the Champions League, right? So there's obviously, you're also not perfect either. You're also not the best. And so I just feel like the way that we analyze things is so extreme, and it drives me fucking crazy, because I'm like, it can't be all bad and it can't be all good, and this is coming from somebody that, like, I am so thing about Arsenal. Like they piss me off so bad. But when people are like, this team is shit, I'm like, no, not, they're definitely not, but they're not as good as they could be, so it is annoying. It's like, can we be honest and like not annoying for like 2 seconds? How does Kepa take us backwards? A backup goalkeeper, what are we even talking about? Kepa is better than Neto. I'm very serious. I'm considering locker room and training dynamics. Kepa mosh it up eventually. I know this guy. You do not know him. He had one little bust up, and with what is it? Sorry, and now you know him for real. What's his favorite color? What's his favorite color, since you know him so well? What's his favorite song, since you know him so well? Get real. Jagoon says, to be honest, we've got bigger things to worry about than Kepa throwing a temper tantrum. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, he didn't destroy Bournemouth's atmosphere. Like I get that, he had a moment, but a moment doesn't define a person either. I feel like Aubameyang was not a bad person, and I don't think I view Aubameyang as somebody with an attitude problem. I think he had some not so great moments, so I think for the most part, he's a good player that has like a good, he's a good guy, but I think we tend to paint people with certain brushes based on one thing that they do, so if he's only had one bust up, then I don't think he's, really like a bad guy. If you're doing it all the time, everywhere that you go, then yeah, you're probably a POS, but yeah. Do you think Arsenal can actually get this Rodrygo deal done? If he wants to leave, yeah. It's all about him at this stage. I think if he's available and he makes himself available, Arsenal can 100% get it done, but he has to make that decision for himself. Kepa stinks. Remember him undermining Sorry. Hopefully we sell him to a La Liga next summer. This got nothing to do with Madueke. He would actually be better than both Drossard and Martinelli. Still don't want him. Do we have the worst fan base? I mean, toxicity, my goodness. It begins with the Wenger in and Wenger out shit. I think I think you look at, like, you ask Man United fans, I think they would say that they have the worst fan base because they have some of the similar themes that we have. They have some, like, super negative people, some overly positive people as well. You know, I do think we have a pretty bad fan base, though, but that's what happens when you don't win. And we're probably in the Big Six, outside of Tottenham, the least winningest club in recent times, in terms of how many trophies we're winning and how big the trophies we were winning are. And, you know, we're dissatisfied and coping, and there's just a lot going on. So we do have one of the worst fan bases, I think, because there's delusion on both sides and dishonesty on both sides. And I think United have a lot of that as well, but they've won more recently than we have, so it's not as bad. They've had a break from the negativity every once in a while because they've won something. We need a break from the negativity. Also, you can argue that Aubameyang didn't want to fight for the badge. He loved the club. You can't argue that Aubameyang didn't want to fight for the badge. He loved the club and wanted to succeed from Henry. I think he wanted to fight for the badge under Arsene, meaning that he liked Arsenal under Arsene, where we still had, like, our French roots. Because, you know, Aubameyang is, you know, he's not French because he's Gabonese, but he's a Frenchie, you know, like, so he I think he was bought into the kind of, like, heritage of Arsenal from that, and then playing under Arsene where the football was different. And when Arteta came in, everything changed. Like, everything about Arsenal has changed a lot since Mikel has been here, for better or for worse. And I don't think Aubameyang was bought into the new Arsenal. He was bought into the old. And so that's where the breaking happened. But there was never a time that I didn't think Aubameyang wanted to play for Arsenal. I just think he didn't necessarily want to play for Mikel. And I think that's the problem in where it came from. There was toxicity when Abue was booed off the pitch. Missed me with all this going back to Wenger. All the Big Six have won at least something during our unbeaten against the Big Six period since April 2023. All the Big Six have won more than us under Arteta, and even in the last 8 years also. I mean, we got to start winning stuff, you know, and a good transfer window starts the process. Did you see it when they asked Aubameyang what Arteta was like? He said intense. He is intense. You can tell. Like, Mikel is very, I think this is probably one of the things that I wouldn't say I dislike about him, but I would say it's hard to connect with Mikel or feel connected to him outside of him being the coach, because his personality does seem a little cold. Not mean, not evil, but cold, you know? So I'm not saying you have to be a jokester, but look at Aubameyang. Aubameyang and Lacazette, if you go back to the way that they were, if you have this really intense guy, like Arsene was more of like a do what you want, like, you know, kind of guy. You know, Arteta comes in and he's under this immense stress. You know, he's under pressure. He's a young manager that's never done it before. And the first person that you see in the door is Aubameyang, like the biggest clown. Like, and I mean that in the sense of his personality, not in a derogatory way. That's oil and water right there, baby. So, yeah, Aubameyang wanted to play for Arsenal. He didn't want to play for Mikel. Like, that's two completely different things. But just because you have bad moments doesn't mean that you're a bad person. And just because Kepa had a bad moment with Sorry doesn't mean he's going to be tearing up our locker room. So yeah. let's see. When you find a car that's being sold for really cheap, there's a reason why it's cheap. I mean, he flopped as a number one goalkeeper for a top side. Like that, I think that's pretty clear. And Chelsea were never going to get their money back. And so it's been like Kepa has been a long-standing story for it has to be at least 7, 8 years now, so he's been a conversation around flopping, but I just feel like if you feel like you're getting the Chelsea flop Kepa, then you're like, oh my gosh. But if you're getting Bournemouth's goalkeeper, you feel differently about it. He's just not our number one goalkeeper. So for me, it's just not a big deal. It was just a difference in vibes. I'm sure they moved on and are chill with each other. Exactly. Like Arteta is just a different type of guy, so he is serious. They said he was like a coach when he was there at Arsenal. Like it's just different, and I don't think that's, that big of a deal. But, they didn't get along. And so there was friction. And every big manager, I feel like or not big manager, but a manager that's come in at a time where the club was under duress or under a lot of stress and upheaval, usually has a big player that they go head to head with, and they have to make a decision. Are they going to work with this player, or are they going to be a casualty of war? And Aubameyang and Ozil were casualties of war, and Mikel won that battle. And so, it just kind of is what it is. It's over now. Exactly. But that's why he's a backup. As I said, the attack is what matters this time around. Exactly. Abba remains the last captain to win significant silverware at Arsenal, and that has to change this season. Otherwise, Arteta simply has to have humility and step down. And this is what I was saying to that 8H is that there are a lot of people, like there's 1,000 people watching right now, and this community is very much so built around the idea that there doesn't need to be an echo chamber, and there's definitely debate to be had on both sides, and nobody is too positive and nobody is too negative, or it's just you can have your opinion, but this idea that in order to express your your anger or your dissatisfaction or whatever is to constantly spew it everywhere just feels like you're making yourself sick for no reason. We're not playing games right now. The season hasn't started, We don't listen to Plettyberg around here, Taku. Plettengoal, or whatever his name is, was saying that shit earlier and saying that we made an offer. If he said anything now, we must, as a society, move away from this guy. He knows that Arsenal is going to give him so many clicks. So yeah, I'm not listening to him anymore. But he said that Arsenal have already submitted an offer to Noni Madueke, but then Hand of Arsenal and Fabrizio said no offer has been sent over, no personal terms either. So it's Plettengoal. We can firmly put him down there with London Highbury and the bottom corner. And who was the other guy's name? Conan Marble Balls, or Marble Halls, or whatever his name is. You are pretty much an ITK, buddy. What have you gotten right? For in terms of outside of Germany, you are looking funny in the light, so we can just we could put him firmly down there with the Nicolo Shiras and the Plateau Francois. I've seen some crazy names. I'm like, are you guys sure these people are actually real people? Francois, what was it? Plateau? I'm like, is that a name? Nicolo Shira, like these Alfredo Padula, are these real people that you've seen with your own two eyes, like on a video? Like, because these people look fake and made up. Like, every time I see these people, I'm like, let me look. Alfredo Padula, I think his name is. I'm like, that's a made up fucking name. He said, what name should I make up so I can seem like, a Italian, guy that knows what's going on? I'm going to make the name Alfredo. Fuck you. That's not who you are for real. No, maybe he is a real person, but you ain't never got nothing right. You ain't never gotten nothing right. This Alfredo, like I want to be French, so I'm gonna name myself Francois Plateau. Like what? Like, come on, bro. I don't have time, but listen, Pletty Goal is on timeout for me because he's updating us on shit and it's being actively it's um what's the word? Being like picked apart by more reliable people. So we're gonna put him in the until further notice or timeout. He's not it. The fact he works for Sky is embarrassing. To be fair, the person that invented Alfredo sauce was called Alfredo. And the original Alfredo is really good and was never made with cream. Did you guys know that? The original Alfredo was quite literally just the pasta, butter, and Parmesan. And they would take like a little bit of the pasta sauce or the pasta water and put it in with a bunch of little things of butter on the plate and whip it around and then put some Parmesan on it. And that was the original Alfredo, not the stuff that we have now. You guys probably didn't know that. Hagen is like the Arsenal version of NBA Centel. I just figured out what Centel is before like a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, this is an insane account. Would you keep Arteta if he finishes second but wins the FA Carabao Cup? I was having this conversation with my friend the other day, and I was like, I feel like it would have to be like an extraordinary circumstance. Like we finished within a point in the league, we went to the Champions League final and lost to the best team in the world and we won a domestic double. It'd have to be a double. It can't just be a Carabao or FA Cup. So yeah, I mean there's a circumstance where I'd probably be like just about, but he's really running out of excuses. I really think he's going to have to win something big, and the fact that I think for a lot of fans he needs to win something big is pretty much putting him in the dirt, cuz the likelihood of Arsenal winning the Prem or the Champions League, I feel like is so difficult to win those things. And so this is why you need to win domestic cups along the way. It gives you a little bit more credit in the bank. He has like 0. He's overdraft, so yeah. If only some of these names I only know some of these names because of Arsenal YouTubers. I can't care less about In the Know Wars. I knew that Alfredo fact because I'm a foodie. The real no, if you know, you know. The real Alfredo is not what we eat today. The Rodri hate on the timeline was crazy. We even had NBA guys weighing in the guy's performance. How about the question Elvis sent, but with a Champions League semi? It would need to be like a crazy 3-horse or 2-horse Premier League where we barely missed out, but we played insane and we just barely missed out. And it was like we pushed them to like 100 points or we got like into the high 90s. We got to a Champions League final and we missed out to a worldie against fucking Real Madrid or something like that, or Barcelona, and we won a domestic double. It would have to be something extraordinary where at the end of the season, I didn't feel like we failed per se, that we lost to better teams. There's a difference. I feel like when you lose to better teams, but you gave it your all, it's really difficult to like sit there and be like, well, especially if you win stuff, it has to be a double and we'd have to go really far in each competition. And basically it would have to be stolen from us by a better side. Like we really need to be clear about the fact that, he can't go trophyless and, there's an asterisk next to, a season where you didn't win the league. But I mean, we're talking a long list of hypotheticals, so yeah, damn Jess. So basically you want Arteta out because that's not happening. That's the thing though. It's like, it's not about me like disliking Mikel or anything like that. It's just, I just feel like there's signs that he's not the guy to take us over the line. And so I don't want to discount or like pretend like I believe that he's the guy when I don't, because it's disingenuous and I don't want to lie to you guys. I'm I'm tired of this journey, and so last season I was really disappointed when we finished 2 points off because we went out sad in both of the domestic cups, and we really did not do great against Bayern. And I was like, okay, have a good summer. We still haven't improved the front line. Then we do what we did, and that really soured everything. And then we had another kind of like just disappointing season, but we had the injuries and all that. And I'm just tired. I'm really like at the stage now with the Mikel ride that I want to get off the roller coaster and start anew. But my gut is telling me that there's pretty much nothing that could happen next season that will, you know, that will take him out, of the seat. So, but I'm just tired, but I'm also not somebody that's like, feels like we have to keep a manager for 10 years. And I just think that's like an old way of thinking. That's not the modern game where you don't keep managers for 10 years. Of course you give them time to build their side, but once you do that, you have to have real expectations of them to win silverware. Don't be afraid to pivot away from them, fail fast, and I feel we've kind of overextended now and we're kind of like backed ourselves into a corner. So, but some people it's like sacrilegious to even consider moving away from Mikel. And so that's where we are. But he needs to win something next season. But I said he needed to, I thought, there was some not being able to get top four like this. It started when we didn't make top four. I will say my alarm bells when we didn't make top four, and we found a way to, with a 9-point gap, allow Spurs to pip us to top four. That's where it started for me, where you should make top four. If you're 9 points clear of the next team, you should not be falling away here and missing out on top four. I know at the end we got to a point where we had to play Spurs and we had to play Newcastle, and we were without certain players, but we didn't have to get to a point where we had to beat those teams. We were 9 points clear, and Conte was able to get Spurs to overtake us, and Arteta couldn't get us into top four with a 9-point lead. It was very strange. And I was like, okay, I'll put that aside. Next season, we need to win something. We don't win anything, but we make it in our first title race. And I'm like, okay, that's not good. We probably should have, it was a Leicester season. We should have kind of walked our way into the title, the title at that stage. Like we're like 8 points clear at a certain point, but we don't, so then the next season, I'm like, you've spent 200 million, you must win something. We win nothing that season. And to me, that's when it really just was like, he's not the guy, but now we're overcooking it. It's at that point, it was 4 seasons in, so 4 seasons in, you were back with 200 million pounds. You convinced the club to buy Havertz, and we finished 2 points, 2 points away, but equally as well, like you went out sad in the Champions League and you also didn't get a domestic cup. Then we go again, and it's an even worse season outside of making it to a Champions League semifinal. It's worse, and not to mention Liverpool win. It wasn't even City. So it's been a while, to me that, I've been feeling like he's not the guy. But now I don't feel as bad saying it because it's like the proof is not in the pudding, y'all. Like he ain't won nothing in 5 years or 5 seasons. So, so what am I supposed to be doing, here pretending like what? I agree with you, Jess. He ain't the guy, but we just have to accept that he won't get sacked unless he's out of the CL positions. Yeah. Arteta was meant to be generational. That was the whole point of appointing a novice in the first place. I'm waiting to see it. Yeah, I don't believe that. It's antiquated. I get that Fergie, for instance, didn't win a Prem in his 6th, 7th season, I think, but if we don't win, I don't want to give Arteta 10 years. That's a madness. But there's always like an example of an extraordinary situation that we try to attach to Mikel. And then when it doesn't happen, we move to the next one. It took Klopp 4 seasons, and then we didn't win in the 4th season. Now it took Fergie 6 seasons. These were world-class managers, special managers in the Premier League, and they were the exception to the rule. Fergie was an exception. Klopp is an exception. Arsene, to a certain extent, was an exception. Arteta may not be an exception. He may just be a good coach, that is maybe not generational. And so with what Yo-Yo was saying, Arteta was meant to be generational. And this is what I always go back to is Arteta needs to be a world-class manager to take us where we want to go. He can't be just a good coach. He can't just be okay. He can't be good. He needs to be great. He needs to be special, and he needs to be world-class. He's not world-class. He's not elite. He's a good coach right now. And so until he's those things, I don't see him winning us the things that we need, because it's very rare that you see teams win the highest honors that don't have world-class managers. You just don't see it. Like the Premier League has been won by world-class managers for the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, so even Claudio Ranieri was a winner, so where do we get off thinking we're going to be the exception, so, and that's not to say Mikel is not a good coach. Like, I know he's a good coach in my spirit. I know he's a good coach. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, but do I believe that he's world-class? No, so there's that. Fergie, Klopp had bad starts to their tenure before they went to stardom. No manager in history, aside from Mourinho, Klopp, Pep, have won elite trophies from the jump. Arteta is a great coach, but a bad manager, just how I see it. Fergie had already domestic and European trophies before he came to United. He had credit in the bank, can't compare to Mikel. He needs to learn game management. I like Inzaghi ball versus City last night. I forgive him for losing to PSG. Al Hilal play really good football. That was like, it wasn't just sit in your box and not have anybody to hit the ball to. Like when they got the ball and they were playing on the counter, they were brave with it. They defended well, individual moments of brilliance defensively, clearing it off the line. Koulibaly was brilliant. And then when they got the ball, they were brave with it. And that's the thing is, if you're going to play against City and you're not going to play them, meaning you're going to sit back, you need to have a plan for when you get out. You can't just be kicking it into the abyss. And so well done Inzaghi and Al Hilal. I thought that they were brilliant last night. I really do. I've been on the progression argument for a few years. I'm Arteta in, but he needs a UCL final or winning the league. Anything else, he needs to leave. And are we trying to be ambitious this window, or will it be the same old Arsenal? I think if you have a window where you're actively pursuing Eze, Rodrygo, and Sesko, and you've already gotten Zubimendi, and you got your backup goalkeeper, and you're bringing in a young center back prospect in Mascara, and you're bringing in Norgard, and you've already, gotten MLS and Gabriel for new contracts and stuff, then yeah, I think you are being ambitious. So yeah, I think you are being ambitious. Now, if it gets done, if it doesn't get done, then no, so I've been an Inzaghi fan for a while. I knew he was him. For the next manager, I don't want to take a risk to find an unknown manager, to find another slot, but that's a low chance of success. We need a world-class manager to get over the line, but who is world-class and available? This is why I'm saying if you can't go out there and get a Flick or a Luis Enrique or something like that, then you got to go with somebody like Sesk. Like Sesk is the next man up, and Slot was somebody that was doing really well in the Netherlands. So, I don't know. We'll see. Let's see how Cesc does second season. But if City are looking for him to replace Pep, we should be in that conversation, as far as I'm concerned. But there's plenty of managers that you can go get, like, come on. Al Hilal might actually have better talent than Inter. It's a discussion at least. That's crazy. But I finally saw that Milinkovic-Savic play in real life, and I was like, he is actually good. Like, that's crazy. Because he was like a mirage for so long. how is Sesk is the next man up at Como, but we're saying Arteta doesn't have that trajectory because we've seen enough for Mikel. Like, at least here's the thing: is like we've seen enough from Mikel with a good squad and enough opportunities that he's probably not the guy. Like, we know that. So it's not about comparing Cess to Arteta. It's about already you're throwing Arteta out. Like, Arteta is done. You know he's not the guy. So you're starting anew with somebody else. I'm not comparing Cess to a Mikel. Like, Mikel, like, the whole point of moving on from Mikel is he's not the guy. So even if Cesc doesn't have, like, first of all, Arteta doesn't have much in his bag. It's not like he has trophies or anything like that. He has one trophy to his name, but it's not like he has all this stuff that Cesc would have to do to be like so much better than him. But all I'm saying is that, like, he does have the ear of people, and people are starting to look at him for bigger jobs. Leverkusen wanted him, Inter wanted him, Manchester City are already looking at him. Are you really thinking that they're looking at him and he's a fucking bum? Probably not. It's probably because they're trying to get ahead of the curve for somebody that's potentially going to be a top manager. And that is, like, outside of the conversation around where Mikel is and all this kind of stuff. If we're getting rid of Mikel, it's not because we're comparing him to all these other coaches and, yeah, but he's better than Maresca. Yeah, but he's better than so and so. It's because he's not the guy. It's really not anything to do with that. Don't be fooled. Plenty of managers available. I told you I'm a Linkovic Savage is cold. What a footballer. Eventually, you have to give someone else a chance. It's that simple. And that's where I'm at. I'm like, I'm not, it's like Arteta has had Arsenal for a long time now. And he had a moment in time where he was looking like, the next manager, young manager up in 2022, 2023. And since then, his stocks have started to slide down, so he would need to take a big step forward this season and win something to snatch his chain back, because I get that people have the Premier League argument that Premier League is so much harder, but even other managers do better in European competitions than he's ever done. Lower level competitions, by the way, getting to the final of the Europa League. We've never gotten to we've gotten to the final and we got blammed, but that wasn't even Arteta. We've been going out sad, round of 13, quarterfinal, stuff like that. So you have things where you can compare him to other managers without being able to use the Premier League excuse. And the reality is he looks funny in the light, so outside of finishing second in the Premier League 3 times in a row, he doesn't have, like, there's what's there, outside of hypotheticals, that if he had these players, if he had this, and this is why I'm hoping that we get Eze, Rodrygo, and Sesko and everything goes to plan, because then we'll know for sure. Because the only further argument that you have is he hasn't had the type of attackers. But if you have Rodrygo and Sesko and Eze, I'm not trying to hear that, so we'll see. If they sign all those targets and we don't win anything, they have to let him go. The last time Arteta performed under the spotlight was an empty stadium with water breaks. Yo, please stop. With the likes of Abba, Pepe, Laka, Emi, Ainsley Maitland-Niles being difference makers. The asterisk has grown exponentially. I'm done. When you said water breaks, you're doing too much. Like, you're killing me with the water breaks. You're killing me with the water breaks. And water breaks is cold. Come on. But you're not wrong. If Cesc can get Como to a top 3 Serie A finish plus a decent CL run, then he is the one. I'm going to be watching, you said move your camera down. If you're being, like, weird right now, you can go. Like, in fact, there's no way to misinterpret that comment. You're a fucking weirdo. But yes, man said water breaks. But yeah, Cesc can get where I'm going to be watching Como really closely next season, just because also, like, I feel like, no, you're not. Why would you want to move it down? Like, don't be weird. Be normal for 5 seconds. Like, are you okay? Kahinde, I didn't see your comments. To be fair, like, I really didn't see your comments. So I'll roll back up and see, unless you want to post what you said, I'll read it out real quickly too. But here. Hello, Jess. What's the name of that place in LA where you can watch live sports or a match? How was your experience there? It's called Cosm, and it is really fun. It's like there's plenty of like bars. There's like multiple bars. There's the big screen where you can see it. It feels like you're really there. And I've been there 4 times for different things, Arsenal games and other teams. I watched Aston Villa versus Liverpool there. I watched Wrexham and someone else, and I watched Arsenal versus Fulham and Arsenal versus Villa. So I didn't watch any wins, but it's really fun. It's really fun and it's cool and it's just, good food, drinks, and it feels like you're there. It's a really cool concept. So if you're like a sports experience person, you'll like it. You'll like it a lot. So yeah, let's see. It's not covered. Well, okay. I mean, you're not entered the chat covering your face. Well, I'm gonna put the chats down. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna if I move my camera up, I'll be like up here. You'd have to wait to first of all, people want their comments up on the screen. But you calm down, guys. The reason why we're so on edge is because we've had so many weirdos lately. Yesterday, I added somebody as a mod. Were you here, Jado? Yesterday, I added somebody as a mod and they blocked people and they blocked Keenan and it sent me into a tailspin. Then we've had, no offense to H, but he's been doing the most and I had to block him yesterday because he said something really weird to someone. So we're on edge, so I apologize, Luku, but we're just going to wait till the comments go down because people want to see their comments on the screen. PSG was also looking at Arteta before going to Enrique. It's always not that easy and not a foregone conclusion that Fabregas will be a success. But the thing is if you're saying that it's not that easy and it's not a foregone conclusion, that's also not a reason to not move. And that's the thing is you can never predict things 100%. So you have to trust people like Berta and the people up top to be able to make a educated guess on who can come in, right? And so Total Eclipse is a Liverpool troll. If the only way that we can move away from a manager is if we know with all certainty, then we'll never move away from Mikel because there's no manager that we know 100% is going to be good for us because you're saying that, right? So Fabregas is not a foregone conclusion. We also know Arteta is not a foregone conclusion, but we actually have a lot of information on Mikel, around 6 seasons worth of data that can give us a good indication of whether he's the guy or not. And it's more important to, I think, define or at least come to a conclusion about whether or not he's the guy or not. And that makes the decision to move rather than is there somebody else that could be better, because you'll never know that until they come in. You'll never know. So just, there's nobody out there that we know for sure, but ignoring the 6 years of data, the 6 seasons of data that you have on Mikel that shows that he's not, feels like a club that doesn't believe in themselves and doesn't believe that the people up top can make a smart decision and are also not the types to fail fast. I think failing fast is the smartest thing you can do. Bring somebody in with the best information that you have. And then if it doesn't work out, move on once you have enough information that it's not working and go to the next thing because you're closer to where you want to be if you move fast. But just sticking with somebody just because you're afraid of the unknown is not something that big clubs do. I think even in business, people in business make big moves with educated kind of backing around it. They take all the elements that they can to make a smart, educated risk, but they don't not take risks. Nobody that's successful doesn't take risks. And Arteta was a risk at the beginning, and maybe they feel like they need to hold on to this one because they backed it. But there's nothing wrong also with saying we gave it a good old college try. And, we've gone the 6 seasons. We've given him the what he needs, especially after this season, because he will have the attackers. If it becomes the case that he doesn't win anything, I don't think anybody will begrudge them for moving away from somebody that they have all this data on whether or not he's the guy or not, right? But I get why there's fear moving in a different direction. And not every pivot is a Emery. Not every pivot is a Emery. It's not, so I think what Arsenal fans have fear of is that you have the Arsenal situation where if they knew that Emery was the person coming in, they would have stuck with Arsenal because they feel like maybe the only example of pivoting is negative for them. So they're like, oh no, so yeah, but I just don't see anybody moving this way but us. It's moving scared to me doesn't say big club, whether it's players coming in or the manager or whatever. They're not going to let us win the league regardless of the manager. Who's they? Who's they? Mikel seems like the type to even walk away for his sake. Funny enough, he's actually put us in a position where we can take calculated risks. The next manager is finished. The PR, Mikel has got people brainwashed. Spot on, Jess well said. Arteta should have started his managerial career at Rangers or Sociedad and then succeeded at PSG before coming to Arsenal. It never made sense why we were obligated to appoint him. I just think, he said the things that they wanted to hear. And Arteta's a very good talker. I think if Arteta wants to move away from footy, he'd be a great politician because he can get people behind him with his words. Whether he delivers on those words are, yet to be seen. But listen, we didn't need to go in this direction. It was not like he was the only manager available. We went in this direction, and I like that. At that point, I was like, well, at least Arsenal are taking a risk and they're doing something different. I have nothing wrong. I have no, I would have gotten Ancelotti. I would have gotten Ancelotti or gave him the money. That's probably what I would have done. But if you go in this direction, cool. Back it and stand on that decision. And they've done that to a certain extent. But now we have a lot of information on whether or not that risk was worth it, or at least has it gotten us where we want to be? There's been a lot of positive in this risk. The club has been rebuilt. We have a great core of players that we really like and are actually very good. The culture around the club is a lot better, but is it a winning culture? Is the team good enough to win those things? That's the gap that we're in right now. So yeah, is the manager good enough? So yeah, I don't begrudge them for taking that risk, because I'm like, if you make a big decision, I want you to stand on that shit. But once it's not working, I want you to be almost confident enough and almost humble enough to pivot away and say it didn't work. And that's kind of where we're at now. Is I think Arsenal are holding on with the hope that it'll work with these new attackers. So let's see how it goes, because there's nothing more that I would want than for Arteta to get his players and to win things this season. Nothing more than I would want, because I don't want all this work to go to waste. I don't want Arteta to fail. That's not how I operate. But if he doesn't win and he has those attackers, I care about Arsenal more than I care about Mikel. So he would have to go. He fixed the defense and probably the midfield. For some reason, he's destroyed the attack. Let him fix the attack this season, and he doesn't win, he should walk. Meaning we need to rebuild again. I don't believe this either. I don't actually believe this idea that our whole entire team is going to get up and leave because Mikel is gone. I think that's a fantasy or like a story that people have built up in their head. That's never happened in the history of football ever once, where a manager has built a side and because he's left, everybody just tears up their contract. By the way, they're legally obligated to be at Arsenal through their contracts, and players also understand that in modern football, managers come and go. And so they're not going to leave just because Mikel's not here. I think that that's something that the kind of like more positive group has made up to fearmonger around getting rid of Mikel, but it's made up. It's a complete fallacy and a made up thing. Like, you made that up in your brain. Like, it's not true. It's not going to happen. first of all, legally, they're not going to leave because they have contracts with us and we don't have to sell them. But they're grown-ups and they know what football is about. They'll see managers come and go. And so it would be stupid to only sign for Arsenal under the pretense that Mikel has to be here. That's not how it works. So absolutely not. Hold on. Wait, hold that. We need to rebuild. We don't need to rebuild. You guys talking to each other. Stop hating on Mikel. Don't turn this club into Manchester United with new manager every season. I just think Saul, like, there's examples of changing managers that have been positive, and Arsenal fans view changing managers as a negative, and there's only a negative outcome. And we're so scared to move manager because we are thinking it's the only option is Man United, to become Man United. But guess who else changed their manager? And it was a positive thing. Liverpool. Liverpool changed from Klopp. There was a lot of Liverpool fans that wanted to keep Klopp because they didn't like the unknown. They were scared, just like Arsenal fans, and they turned around and won the league. So this whole idea that the only option when you change managers is for it to fail is, again, something else that we have made up. There's a positive to moving managers as well. There's also a chance that he's built a good enough squad that it's a good start for a new manager, and you need somebody else to take us that additional 5% that Mikel can't take us to. So I don't think it's like, I really don't think that it's that cut and dry that if Arteta leaves, the only way is down, which the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to become Man United and you're going to lose all your players. When has that happened? Liverpool and Slot only won because the Premier League underperformed this season by a landslide. Say it ain't so. There's no guarantee that had we not had injuries, we would have won the league. All we know is that Liverpool didn't win the league. Using hypotheticals is, and that's the thing, is there's a certain section of this fan base that can only use hypotheticals to make their arguments around why we should keep Mikel and why it's fine. But everything that's happened in real life is somehow a mirage or has an asterisk next to it. Every time that we don't win the league, there's some sort of asterisk on the other team or why we didn't win it. But there's only hypotheticals to back up their arguments, and hypotheticals don't win you anything. So hypothetically, like, yes, we could have probably won it, but there's no guarantee because we've never won it before. So it's not like we're a team that's known for getting it over the line. All we know is we didn't win it, and they did, So I feel like I get what you're trying to say. I do. I get what you're trying to say. But there's still other examples of clubs changing managers and being in a good position. Like, let's say, an even smaller example is Gary O'Neill saved Bournemouth from relegation, and everybody was mad that they sacked Gary O'Neill, only for Areola to come in and to change how people view Bournemouth and for them to get better than they were under Gary O'Neill. So sometimes, positive things happen from changing manager. Sometimes negative, but sometimes positive as well. Slot doesn't go to Liverpool if Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Trent all left before he came, but they didn't leave, so they didn't leave when Slot came. Slot came in and Salah actually preferred or was excited about the changes that he made. So listen, that's neither here nor there, because our situation is very clear that, Mikel is going to get his players and, at least get backed in a certain way. And so we'll be able to say whether or not he's the guy, kind of, like, based on, new information, because the only missing piece is that he hasn't had the attackers. He's had, like, the whole rebuild outside of the attackers. So we'll get to see, and we'll know, and like I said before people are like, you just hate Mikel. I prefer him to be the guy because I don't want to believe that we wasted all this time. But I also don't want to delude myself into thinking that if he doesn't win again this season, this season, that it's just because of PGMOL or injuries or whatever. It could just be the case that the manager is just not good enough. And if that's the case, Arteta's way more, or Arsenal is way more important than Arteta. So we need to move and do something different, you know, that's all. But listen, let's like the video and subscribe to the channel on the way out. Thank you to everybody who super chatted and just regular, you know, put in chats. I really appreciate it. If I didn't get to your comment, I'm sorry, but when there's like so many people in the chat, sometimes I don't see it. So it's not that I'm like actively ignoring you. And again, just to reiterate, this is not an echo chamber. Everybody's allowed to have their opinions. Sorry to Tuku, I think that's your name, for thinking that you were doing something untoward. I was on edge. We've had some nut jobs in the chat recently, but hopefully you still like the video and subscribe, because I would love for you to come back when I'm not as on edge. Like and subscribe on your way out, and we will talk again. Hopefully we'll get an announcement for Zubamendi tomorrow, but hopefully we just get some information on these attackers. But love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.